So welcome to my kitchen. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome to Cooking Today. I'm glad you're here today. Can you believe it's like harvest season? I mean, we're there. It's the holiday season and the food is just rich and good and comforting and so many great flavors. I feel like this is all that we need. It's like the perfect excuse to like load up your shopping cart with like cream cheese and heavy cream, and it's finally justifiable to have like a cart full of fat and flavor. And y'all, this recipe is delicious. Today, just kind of November themed, we are making a pumpkin Alfredo tortellini with crispy pancetta and sage. I mean, can we just take a minute and talk about all of those wonderful fall holiday flavors? Sage, don't we love it so much? I love it in this. You're gonna just be crazy about this Alfredo sauce. Flavors of the season. I'm so glad they're here. Let me tell you what we're gonna do first. We're gonna make we're just gonna boil those good, quick, pre-packaged bags of 5 cheese tortellinis. You know these, we've made these before when we did a bacon ravioli here that was delicious. And when these are ready to cook, they cook in like lickety split. And so we need to have our water boiled and ready to go so we can just dump it in at the very end. So we'll have our water boiling and ready while we get everything else ready to go, because those only cook in like 2 or 3 minutes. So what I want to do before anything else is get my water on, and I just have it in like a 3-quart saucepan with a lid, and I'm just going to stick it over here and let that get going for our tortellini at the very end. And next, let's talk about this pancetta. Oh, y'all, this is so good. As a matter of fact, I made this for my family the other day, and I had one that kind of turned his nose up a little bit and was like, what's all this? Why would you put pumpkin in Alfredo sauce? Why would you mess that up? He came back for seconds, and he kind of did the layout on the couch because it was so good, like at the end. He was like, oh, Mom. I said, I know, I told you. So what is one of the richest, best flavors in this pumpkin tortellini is this pancetta. Pancetta is just an Italian bacon, and you can get it at your deli. I get mine at Harps, and it comes in a really long, like at the deli counter, and it comes in this really long kind of tube, and they slice it really nice and thin for you. And then what I'm gonna do is crisp this on a parchment-lined sheet pan in a 425-degree oven or so for 8 or 10 minutes, and it's gonna get really thin and so crispy. It is especially salty, very, very, very savory. And we're gonna top our pumpkin Alfredo tortellini with those wonderful little crisped pancetta rounds. Y'all, it's delish. I can't wait for you to try this. It is so, so good. Okay, I'm gonna set my timer because I would sure hate to lose those. It's a little bit of a splurge, but it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. Now, all I'm gonna do is we're gonna start on our sauce. So I have my big braiser. You kind of want something that's got sides, kind of more like a pan that's a little bit more shallow with some sides, because ultimately we're gonna make our sauce, and then we're gonna make our tortellini, and we're gonna end up putting it all in the same pan. So you really do need to start with a pan that has the sides on it so that you can get everything in it. If you start a little too small and you're thinking only your sauce, then you're gonna be, you know, at the end, kind of up a creek. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and chop some garlic. And, you know, generally, I always have garlic and onions. We aren't gonna do onions in this one. Can you believe it? This may be a first, since these are such a good little pairing. But we are gonna do several cloves. Usually I would say 4 to 5. This one's pretty big, so I'm gonna just do this one. And then we just wanna give it a nice little chop. Not too small, not too big, just something right in the middle. and we have our heat on low with a couple of tablespoons of butter in there, salted or unsalted in this one. It doesn't completely matter. So we're going to give this a little chop. And then let's talk about our sage. Sage, I mean, doesn't it just smell like Thanksgiving? I actually had the cameraman give it a little whiff. Before we started, I handed it over to Andrew and I said, doesn't that just smell like the holidays and Thanksgiving? It just does, doesn't it? Especially when you get it kind of sauteing on the stove like we're about to do with some butter and some garlic. It is delicious. And so I buy mine in a little personal, like there's a little sleeve that I get at Harps that is about 1/4 ounce or so. But ultimately, however you buy your sage, you're going to want to use about 8 or 10 leaves of it, of the big leaves, and we're going to pull those off in just a minute. And so I am going to finish up chopping our garlic. I can tell that my water is boiling, and we're going to make sure that our butter is nice and melty. When we come back, we're going to start throwing things in the pot, talk a little bit more about this sage. This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company.
Hi, welcome back to Cooking Today. We are making pumpkin Alfredo Tortellini with crispy pancetta and some sage. Doesn't that sound delicious? I really love this dish. It is easy. Y'all are not going to believe it. Doesn't it have a fancy name? I know that it does, but it is so simple that you are going to love making this for your family. And if you were to have like a little, you know, the holidays, you start to kind of host a little bit. This is a showstopper, and it is so rich and good. And again, hardly any work. You will knock your friend's socks off on this one. This is a good one. So I've got my water boiling for my tortellini that we're going to throw in real quick at the end. My pancetta is on a sheet pan that we're crisping in the oven, easy as that. And then I have 4 or 5 cloves of garlic that I have just done a nice little chop on. And then I have some butter on low in my braiser. And of course, you know, I always have to give a little shout to my braiser because I use it all the time. And the holidays are coming up, and y'all, I'm just telling you, it will be your favorite pan in the world. You've seen me use it here a million times. You might need to put it on your Christmas list, and you know you can get that at UMass. How was that? But I mean it. I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't mean it. Okay, so I've got my little 4-ounce container or 1/4 ounce container of my sage. And I'm going through here and I'm pulling off the biggest parts of the leaves. I'm listening for my garlic. You know, we don't want that to burn. And I'm going to go ahead and just use them all. Maybe 10 leaves, 12 leaves or whatever. And I am just going to go over these with a little rough chop. It doesn't have to be tiny. You don't have to roll them like you do basil to do a chiffonade. I'm just doing a little chop on those. And then I'm going to just put them in here with our garlic and our butter. Oh, y'all. Wait till you smell that in your house. I mean, it is delicious. Already, we have some great things happening in here. So look how pretty that is. And we just want this on low. We do not want to get our garlic. You know, we've talked about garlic many times. It will burn, burn, burn. And so we literally, I have this down on like a 1. I just want to kind of get the flavor out of that sage, kind of release the oils and get it nice and tender. And then we want to get our garlic nice and tender and fragrant. So here's what's left over on this is kind of the fancy fun part, you know, just for kind of entertaining or hosting at home. We've taken off the main leaves on our sage, but look at all these little baby cuties that are down here, these little tiny, you know, smaller leaves that are almost too small to chop and put in there because we've got plenty. Look how many are down here at the base. So I just take those off and I save them because look how fun those are going to be. Look at this little sprig. Like just one little easy garnish. And I'm not normally a garnisher. But if you have something that's just that simple, just to throw on top at the end, why wouldn't you be a garnisher? You know what I mean? And again, it's the holiday season where we kind of, oh, there's our pancetta. Where we get kind of, you know, we kind of put on a little bit of like fun and fancy in our sparkle. Those little baby leaves are kind of like our little sparkle on our pretty pot of pasta. Okay, my pancetta is beeping at me, so I'm gonna grab my mitt. I'm gonna look at it real quick. Oh yes. Okay, so look, those little rounds, oh golly, those smell good. Those little rounds crisp up and they kind of pull in. Aren't they neat? And we're gonna let those just sit there for a minute and kind of camp out. Listen to how they're still cooking. They're so salty. You can smell how savory they are in the air. So we're gonna have this cream base that's so good. And then with those bites, we'll have that crisp and we'll have that salt, and just all those flavors are just fantastic. So we are gonna get going on our sauce. I can smell this really nicely. And I'm a little bit stuffy today, and so if you can smell that on a day like today, it is heaven. It's heavenly. That's a good little waft to get. So what we're gonna do with our sauce, this is so easy, y'all. You can get the full recipe on our website, but I have some milk, whole milk, and some heavy cream. Some people will do all cream, and believe it or not, I think that's a little heavy. And so this is some whole milk and some heavy cream, just to kind of give us a nice medium kind of texture, not too heavy and not too light. And so we have about 2.5, 3 cups of liquid in here that we're gonna pour on our garlic and our sage. Oh boy. And then I have brought my heat up just a little bit, still pretty low, because you know if you put milk and cream on the heat, it could scald, and we don't want to do that. And then we're going to let that come up to a little bit of a simmer. I just want to let that come up just a little bit. And then as it comes up, we're going to stir in our pumpkin and some other great flavors that you are going to love. Oh my goodness, it's fall cooking. Isn't it the best? Come back and see us. This is Cooking Today.
Iced tea, sponsored by Lipton.
What I love most about the farmers market is the music, the art, the food, the people themselves. That's local, that's Fayetteville.
Local means homegrown.
My kids can run around, they can choose what she wants to get and eat.
I like growing and selling directly to the public.
The market is kind of what community ought to be.
Visit us Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on the square.
The Fayetteville Farmers Market.
100% local.
And love.
Hi, welcome back to Cooking Today. If you're just joining us, we're making the most rich, wonderful seasonal pasta. Easy, it sounds so fancy. We're making pumpkin Alfredo Tortellini with this wonderful crispy pancetta and some sage in our sauce. All the best flavors in the world. Your family's gonna love this. It's a little bit fancy and I love it, but it's delicious. Every bite is outstanding. We have our cream that we've gone ahead and here we go. So I've gotten it just to a simmer on my stove. And I've got my garlic and the sage that's sauteing in there. And I have 1 can of pumpkin. Now, we're looking for canned, pureed pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling. That is so important because pumpkin pie filling is already like sweetened, and we don't want it sweet. You know, it's got all the stuff in it that's already mixed in, like cinnamon and cloves. We're not going for that. We're just going for pumpkin, pure pumpkin. And that's what I've got. So be sure when you are buying that's what you get, because you may make this and say, what in the world was she thinking? And it means that you did something not quite right at the grocery store. So, canned pumpkin, okay? So, and I'll tell you, it's usually by the, this is what may get you confused. It's usually by the pie fillings, you know, in the cans, like in the baking aisle. So just be sure that you get the right thing, but that's where you can find it. So, into our cream and our sage and our garlic and our butter, we have whisked in only about 2/3 of a cup. So it's not crazy thick. It's not it's not like a pumpkin spice latte we're gonna put on top of like a tortellini. It's just barely flavored, just the littlest bit sweet. And then to give us the Alfredo part that we're used to having in this good cheese sauce, we have a half a cup of good quality grated Parmesan cheese that we're going to put in here and whisk while this is nice and warm. And right now, this is a little bit thin. So it's not the right texture yet, but what we're going to do is leave the lid off of that and let that just simmer nice and low, and it's going to kind of reduce and thicken, and you'll start to see it kind of thicken around the outside. So don't panic if you're making this and you think, oh my word, the texture is all wrong. It's just fine. It just needs a little bit of time. So our pancetta is cooling, and as it cools, it crisps a little bit more. If you want to remove these over and put them on, a paper towel to kind of pat out, some of the grease on that and let them dry it a little bit, you can. We're just kind of out of room today. And then we have our water going for our tortellini, because as soon as our sauce looks like it's about to thicken, we're going to get our tortellini in there. Okay, so right here on our sauce, like I can feel it starting to drag a little bit in my, when I do my whisk. We want to throw in a pretty good pinch of salt, a pretty good pinch of pepper. And then, this is another little seasonal flavor that just puts this over the top. We're going to add in a little bit of freshly grated nutmeg. They come in these little seeds, whole like this. If you don't have the seeds, you can always do, just ground, but just a little bit, maybe about a quarter of a teaspoon or so. Bottom line is, kind of a good rule of thumb, any kind of cream sauce ever on anything just kind of begs for a little bit of nutmeg, always. It's just so good, it warms it up. So I'm just going to do a little bit right over my pan. Just a little, not a lot. And you know what? You're just going to barely even know that it's there, but it's good. Okay, so this is thickening. So because this is starting to go ahead and thicken, I am going to go ahead and lid it. This is kind of important. You do want to have your saucepan that you cook it in. You do want it to have a lid, and I'm going to give it just a little bit of a crack so that we, have a little bit of steam that's coming out. And now, because we only have a few minutes left, because things have come together. Do you see how quick that was? This only took a few minutes. Our water's boiling. Our sauce is ready. I mean, can you believe how quick? I'm going to go ahead and put in my tortellini in my water. That's hot. I'm going to grab a mitt. In my water, and I'm going to count it, because these little bags of these tortellinis, y'all, they cook so quickly. Like I would even say, let me read it to you just so we're sure, 4 minutes. And what I like to do on this, because we're going to dump it into a warm sauce, I like to go a little under. So if it says 4 minutes, I'm probably going to do it for about 3, because we're going to transfer it over and put it into our sauce, which will continue to kind of cook it a little bit. Does that make sense? So if you cook it completely in your first pan and then put it over into your sauce, you may overdo it. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump these in. They're going to all float to the top. And I'm going to start my timer for about 3 minutes on this. When we come back, I'm going to go ahead and toast some bread in the oven so it's good and crusty. When we come back, we're going to put it all together. The easiest, richest fall pasta. Come back. This is Cooking Today.
Rice, sponsored by Mars.
Hi, welcome back to Cooking Today. We're wrapping up beautiful pumpkin Alfredo tortellini with crispy pancetta and sage all in our good sauce. Look how easy this is. So our sauce thickened. Like I told you, our sauce would thicken. We have our easy store-bought tortellini that we bought that cooked in about 4 minutes. And all I'm going to do is turn my heat off. I'm going to scoot this over closer to my pan. And then I'm just taking a slotted spoon and moving them over into my sauce. It is absolutely perfectly fine to get a little bit of that pasta water in here, because what it does is it kind of thins up our sauce just a little bit. Kind of makes it spread a little further. So I'm going to get just about that much. We'll leave a few in the pan. Oh my goodness. And then I'm going to move this over here for y'all to see it. We're going to stir this in. Y'all look how good. Good, good, good. I'm going to stir it in, okay? Oh, y'all, it smells so good. And then, look how easy this is. We're going to spoon our pasta in our bowl, top it. There's usually enough on this recipe. It makes about 4 to 6, serves enough for about 4 to 6. Whew, get my little steam bath there. Each one has just about enough room for about 3 crispy rounds of our yummy pancetta. Look at this. Another little shake of parm. And then we're going to do our neat little greens and some really good seasoned breadcrumbs right on top for a little texture. That's all there is to it. Look how beautiful. Pumpkin Alfredo Tortellini with crispy pancetta and sage. I hope you'll try it at home. Happy holidays.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company. Kitchenware is provided by Una Mays. Iced tea, sponsored by Lipton. Rice, sponsored by Mars.